भद्रं कर्णैभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागं सस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Om. May we hear with our ears what is auspicious. May we see with our eyes what is auspicious. May we think the auspicious and holy thoughts with our minds. And may our life be dedicated to the service of God. Om. Peace, peace, peace. Let us close our eyes and breathe very gently. Let us feel the innermost center of our being, which does not change. Let us feel that as a steadily burning candle flame in our heart. Let us concentrate on that. As I concentrate on that, it becomes bigger and bigger, brighter and brighter. My whole awareness is only that. I am beyond time and space when joined with this center. I am one without second. I am peace itself. Om. Peace, peace, peace. Let's open our eyes now. I am very thankful to revered Pravrajika Brahmaprana for giving me this opportunity to speak with you. Uh, and the topic I have chosen, which actually one of the topics she has suggested, and on which I had given a lecture in Providence during our Sunday services in November, learning to listen. So I thought it is quite easy for me. I won't have to do any preparation. Mm. But then when I heard that talk, it is recorded on our YouTube channel. So I heard it again and then realized that I had not heard it because while I was speaking, probably I was not listening to it. So it is so many things there that which were there. I thought I am listening to it for the first time. So therefore, this topic again assumes great importance. The learning to listen, because I saw that I didn't listen to many of the great things which were uh, spoken in that talk. They are great because they are very helpful in our spiritual search or spiritual practice, and they have come from the great sages. So, this idea that listening, we have to learn to listen. One may just ask, why should we be learning to listen? We have been, hearing, we have ears, and we hear, but why should we learn to do the listening? There is a reason for that, friends, that we do not always listen. It is we our ears as such are open, but the listening does not happen because what we intend to listen is not really that is actually getting recorded in our brain and in our mind. So, why? Because so many noises are going on around in these days of attending meetings on Zoom instead of going in person to the church or to Vedanta Society or even in schools for classes. Uh, well, it is the only second best. It cannot substitute the in person attendance as long as we are identified with body. It is the identification with body makes us, uh, get to that place in person uh, very important. It is seen that in the schools, when the classes are being given on Zoom or online, it is it is two types that sometimes they are synchronous, means like you are listening to me right now as I am speaking at the same time. So you tune to the live this lecture. So that is one thing, or it gets recorded and then you, at your leisure, you listen to it at some other time. So, in both these cases, there is this problem that you are seated in your cozy, comfortable seat at home. Mm. And then so many other things are happening around you. Your attention gets diverted towards those. Uh, something happens there at home, uh, and then, for example, a doorbell rings, and then you feel that you are now required to answer that doorbell, and somebody has come, you speak with that person, and then again come and sit in front of your computer, while carrying whatever conversation that has gone at the door, in your head. So now that is interfering with what you are listening from your teacher or whosoever in the class. So that is mm, getting in conflict with the listening process. So there are naturally so many uh, inhibitors in this process of listening uh, virtually. It is, moreover, you may feel that, well, if I have a cup of coffee now, maybe I will be able to listen to it better. So the mind already has gone elsewhere. The speaker may be saying God alone is real and whatever, but your mind is making sound. Coffee alone is real and something like that. So it is. Uh, then there are all the other thoughts that are making noise because of the circumstances, that you are one is surrounded by that home situation, which gives rise to home thoughts. That is why company is very important. Holy company. Why it is important? Because when say we are in holy company, and holy company means, the surroundings where all of us join, come together to think of something that is holy, and that what we seek for our spiritual enlightenment. So, that being the case, it is that holy thoughts come. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, as soon as you see a barber shop, you remember, oh, I need a haircut or something like that. Because that is how our mind works. It is so many inputs are coming all the time, and they are crowding our brain. When you are in a, say, big crowd, uh, it happens a lot in Indian markets here, because there are those different shopping complexes and all. In India, in the shops, as if it is a loud auction going on. That is how so much of noise all the time. So now you are listening already. It is difficult to listen to only a particular thing. So it is noise that is filling. Now, still you want to listen to a particular thing, so you have to put certain filters. So this is something that we need to learn, friends, to put in filters, because the external situation is not always under our control. Rather, very rarely it is what we can control, that the noises will keep on coming. It is, but even if we sit in a so-called controlled environment externally, what about all the internal noises which are being created? It is, our mind is full of so many thoughts. So even when, say, of course, everybody has come here with the desire to listen to this lecture. Otherwise, what was the need for that? It is, they want to listen to this lecture. But while they are listening, even if there is no other external sound coming in. Still, so many thoughts that are constantly bubbling, like water on boil. So many these uh, bubbles will be rising. So also in our mind, uh, so many thoughts are coming up, which may be completely unrelated to what is going on in what is being said by the speaker, that suddenly the mind will go in other direction. And as an experienced speaker, not much experience in virtual speaking, but as an experienced speaker for last many years, uh, I have developed, like almost everybody develops that by looking at a person whether that person is listening or not listening. The face indicates that. And just to help that person, I take the name of that person. Many ask that, well, why you are taking our name, singling us out like that? Because when I take the name that person, otherwise the person is kind of half asleep or in another world. Maybe just listening to this talk, but is thinking of the Super Bowl in the evening. That, well, yeah, who is going to win and so forth. If one of the teams fighting, I don't know which teams, but then if it is one of the teams that you are rooting for, then that's the end of it. So my lecture will be heard. These words will go through the ears, but the listening will get blocked by the noise that the thoughts are making. Here, one incident is worth narrating, that our center in Nagpur, you already heard the introduction that I was there for more than 2 decades. So, they there is a big, very busy road that passes just along the compound of the center, and just very close to it is the meditation hall. And now it has, yeah, moved a little bit, slightly further, maybe a few feet, but about 45 years ago, it was just close there, and all the time these trucks going, making all that external noise. I was very new, and then anyway, meditation is a struggle, you see. uh, that it is the problem that we all face, that the mind doesn't get concentrated. And then we usually, that is the tricks that we play, our mind plays on us. We blame somebody else, we blame the situation, we blame whatsoever, if nothing is found, we blame the president of United States for whatever is happening. So we blame somebody. And I blame the situation that, oh, such a noisy place. How can one meditate? And then when I said it to another brahmachari, another novice who actually had joined a little later than I had joined. And I said, oh, look, oh, all this noise, how to meditate. But seems to be, he was quite, he much wiser than I was. He said, oh, the noise inside the mind is so loud. What to speak of the noise outside? That pales in significance. when we think of the noise that is going on inside. And I said, how true it is. And because when you are actually listening to something, then the outer sound, other sounds don't matter. You get tuned to that alone. Uh, in the same place in Nagpur, I was managing some office work, and then there was a phone connection there. Phones used to be quite primitive those days, so it is a connection that would come, a message that would come there for me to pick up the phone. It used to be a visual message, and a slight sound accompanying it, very mild ringtone. So, uh, but I used to be so attentive about it that, in spite of the other noises, which were very loud as such, I would exactly be able to pick up that and pick up the phone. Sometimes some other people who were talking with me would say that, did you hear the phone ring? Why did you pick it up? I said, I heard that ring because uh, I was focusing on those things too, that other noises would get abstracted and I could listen to that ring so that I can pick it up. So it is, when you want to listen to something, you can. One of my friends, who was a tremendous music lover, and so he suddenly one day said, oh, what a nice that sitar I am listening to. I did not listen. Where? It is coming this. Well, where? No, no, I can hear it. It is. It actually was going on. Not that I am very hard of hearing, at least was not those days. It is, but he was so tuned to such these musical inputs that being something that is he is tremendously interested in, he could get it in spite of all the other sounds going on. Even that very mild sound he could pick up. And I have seen this with many people, that they exactly are able to pick it up. So, because they are looking at their whole system, as it were, the body and mind are trained to extract that. So, uh, this is how there is this listening process. If you see the a little bit about how the listening happens, I won't elaborate much on it, on the technicalities of it, but a few rudimentary things would help us to understand that the external vibrations, they uh, travel to our eardrums, and then those vibrations, the diaphragm moves accordingly, in the ear, the eardrums move, and then there is the conversion of that. Now the platform now changes to electrical vibrations. They are very different in nature. That is what were coming to us. It is called longitudinal. What gets converted is the electromagnetic waves that are called that are they fall amongst what is called transverse waves. So they now travel to the brain. Whatever the vibrations, they get carried to the brain. Now, hearing hasn't now completed, in the brain. Now, it gets back deciphered. as a sound signal, and then it is referred to the mind, and then mind hears it according to certain codifications that already is there to decipher it. So and it sends a response. So that finishes in a way the process of listening. Something is coming uh, to us on the eardrums, and it is traveling, and then we are able to hear. But till the mind sends the signal, that response, we do not really hear it, and that depends on the bias. On our prejudices. Prejudice is usually a bad word, bias or prejudice. But what it means here is there is a prior information program there, and then the response comes from that. Without that being there, there won't be any understanding, any response. It won't be hearing at all. For example, if somebody is speaking to me in, say, Swahili, now, I don't know the language. I don't have that program. So even though the sound will go there, will it be listening? Not listening to get the meaning of it. Not in the sense that I get the meaning of it. The sound will be traveling, but it will just as if uh, nothing is heard, because I am not getting the meaning there. So, to get the meaning, there has to be this prior knowledge, and every person has a different prior knowledge, even when we all are listening to the same words with the same understanding of language. I mean, we know the English language to whatever extent, but then still the response depends on our personal certain feelings that we already have in our mind, certain ideas that are already there. So, for a proper listening, uh, it is to be remembered that it has to be there for everyone. It has to be there. Without that, there won't be any listening happening. But now, uh, for proper listening, one has to learn how to keep aside those biases or prejudices which are interfering with that information and are not allowing me to get what is being conveyed by the speaker. So, uh, it is certainly an art, a skill that needs to be learned. That when I am listening, uh, let me see to whatever extent, maximum extent, to keep my personality interfering in it. Mm. A great example of this is, you are all familiar with it, Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, uh, chronicled by Mahendranath Gupta. Swami Vivekananda speaks about it that, look, the author has kept himself completely out of it, and thereby fulfilled the meaning of his last name. That is, Gupta, his last name was Mahendranath Gupta. So, Gupta means hidden. So, he is hidden in that. He is just presenting what Sri Ramakrishna spoke that day. So, listening means, that we have to focus on what they is being intended to be conveyed, not just what how I get it, how I understand it, with a lot of inputs from my own interpretations, but let me get it as it is. And that you see in Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. That is why that book is very special book, where you get the message of Sri Ramakrishna without the interference of somebody who is noting it down. So, uh, otherwise, it becomes, the interpretation in our own minds, and when we convey it to somebody else, we again change it as we want it to be presented. So that is how the message gets adulterated when coming like this and goes ahead. It is said that if somebody told that, oh, there was such a big snake in our home, uh, it is how long? Now the person's mind might be, what, but says it was about 3 feet long. Now the one hears it long, uh, makes it, oh, it must be about 3 to 4 feet. And then he narrates it to somebody else that, oh, it must have been something like 4 to 5 feet, I heard. Then when that fellow tells, by the time it goes to people, other 10 people, the length of the snake has become already 20 feet maybe. So that is a common experience, that how it uh, you keep on adding in your mind whatever actually is coming as the input. So one has to develop this skill, that how it is uh, being spoken, listen to it. That is an art to learn to listen. It is uh, important, therefore, that we see that the right message gets heard, and then that gets place in our mind. In every field, it is important, very important for the doctors to listen to what the patient is telling. Hmm. The doctor has to be patient, in the sense patiently should listen to whatever being told by the patient, intended pun, you say. So it is the how the patient will be telling so many things. Now the doctors, it becomes especially important for a psychotherapist, because the person who is telling is telling so many different things, and the therapist should give a very patient uh, listening. Uh, Listen. Now, as the listening happens, so many things are being told. Now, those which are important for the therapeutic purposes, the therapist has to separate them and put uh, in our that is not a psychotherapy there, but common medical this treatment. When I used to go with our mobile dispensary to villages, now the person would tell 100 things, and the doctor has to see whatever is important. Oh, what is happening? The doctor, what's the problem? And the patient in the village would start there saying, Oh, the other day I had gone to my uh, son-in-law's place, and then my son-in-law. He will tell it 1 minute about my son-in-law. Now the doctor sees that that is not very important, very, and then the point was that he had eaten something that should not have been eaten, and that is causing the stomach upset. So that much is the point to be listened to, but he has to give patient that attention, listening, all that. But take exactly that is needed. This is an important aspect of the process of listening, to see what helps you to exactly hold on to the important point in this whole thing. So it is many times there are in a meeting, in a discussion, we sometimes have meetings here to discuss a few points to be, thought about in our whatever, in construction, or in some developments, or in our financial matters. So there are the meetings. Now uh, when somebody is saying something, so many unnecessary things also get told, that, oh, that day that particular delicacy prepared was so good. Now it is not part of the this topic of discussion, but it comes out. So then some examples are given. Oh, that person's investments, what happened, and all that. Then it goes further. Oh, forget about that fellow. I know him. So those are unnecessary things that come up there. So you have to confine to the what is really to be understood. Why I am saying this is that the when we are listening to sages or scriptures, we have to understand exactly what is being conveyed as a message. So here now we come to the listening from the sages. For the students of Vedanta, it is of utmost importance, because the practice for Vedanta is told as Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. That is listening, and then uh, pondering over or meditating on what is being listened, and get the meaning inside by removing all the doubts. So then the third aspect is hold on, nididhyasana, to hold on to that content and change our life accordingly. So this is the process, Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. Now, uh, what is really the Shravana, the listening process, how one should listen? And here I will quote from this wonderful treatise, Vedanta Sara. Uh, this is considered as a primer of Vedanta, primer in the sense that it gives very important primary ideas of Vedanta. One should not think here that, oh, I have been listening to all Vedanta for so many decades. I don't need a primer, and not primer in that sense, friends. It is a very important book, and one should study it again and again to get some very important ideas of Vedanta, wonderfully presented and clarified. So here there is this uh, study of Vedantic text. In this book, it is chapter 5, that it is to be realized through uh, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. But what is Shravana? What is listening? So here it brings out the idea. For the sake of time, I won't read the Sanskrit part. I will read only the translation. Hearing is the ascertainment of through the six characteristic signs that the entire Vedanta philosophy establishes one Brahman without a second. So the meaning of this, all these words that you get in Vedanta, it is to establish and to realize this once that important content that the Brahman alone is real. That is towards that all these Vedanta statements are directed. So, this meaning is to be taken in, that is called the Shravana. That is the meaning. Uh, so, that is what it says that get to get the meaning, you have to listen. So, and so, how long should I listen? Mm, till we get to that meaning, the process of listening needs to go on. Like if simple statements, there is not much of a problem. We that sit there on this chair. Now, meaning is clear. Uh, when do you know that the person has listened? When that person goes and sits on the chair. Ah, if that person just stands there or does something else, then the person has not listened. So, listening should be like that to get the at the meaning. As one gets to the meaning, then that is done. It is otherwise the conflicting sounds, as I was mentioning earlier, that all gets interfered and thus mixed. We don't know anything. Sometimes in olden days, when I used to listen to the radios, uh, and then the radio, sometimes the different radio stations would get mixed up. And a humorous situation would arise. They somewhere the frequencies they get mixed up, and both signals alternately start coming through your antenna. And the funny thing was, at one radio station, at one channel, there is, say, a yoga class going on, and then another, a cooking class going on, cooking demonstration. So it is the first statement, maybe you hear the yoga thing, that now put your head down, ah, on your knees, stretch your legs, put your head down on your knees, a yoga posture. Then you suddenly hear, uh, and now chop it and put it in the frying pan. Now say, wow, what does it mean? It is because that was something going on in the cooking class, that say that onion or whatever, chop it and put it in the frying pan. Not the head to be chopped off. That is not the yoga class. So it is, the two things get mixed up. In our head, it keeps on happening all the time, friends, when we are listening, and so many different channels, they get mixed up. So one has to learn to separate and listen to what is being told. So the first thing is, know for sure that the meaning of that you are hearing is, mm, God alone is true. Realize that Brahman in life. That is the meaning of all the message of Vedanta. Uh, that is, you can see that, and in the next aphorisms, it says how it is to be done. mm, that first thing it is said is called upakrama upasamhara, means they at the beginning of the text the purpose would be given, and at the end also the same purpose would be again highlighted. That so by looking at that, you know what is the exact thesis that the text is driving at. So know about that. Like you hear, there are many examples given here that in the Upanishads, it begins with God alone or Brahman alone is real, and then at the end also is that thus we one realizes that God alone is real. That is so beginning and end. It is you will see by properly looking at it what is the main theme that needs to be absorbed. Then comes the repetition. What gets repeated? It is the repetition happens of those important things. Other things are told as analogies, examples, and such things. They need not get repeated. With when we read Sri Ramakrishna's say Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, there come many illustrations, many stories, and so forth. Like it is, you all know that wonderful analogy Sri Ramakrishna gives, a nice metaphor about two friends going to a mango grove, and then one just gets busy counting how many leaves are there, total so many trees, so many branches per tree, so many leaves per branch, and sits and starts making a calculation. The other person makes acquaintance with the owner of the orchard, and then with that he gets some nice sweet mangoes and start eating it. So Sri Ramakrishna said, who is the wiser person, who is making use of the visit to that orchard? So, so he tells there the purpose is to eat mangoes and not to count the leaves. Now, this is to be connected to the life. This is not the message. Sri Ramakrishna is not there to, market mangoes, It is to say that the purpose of life is God realization. Sometimes I tell as in humor that why I came to Sri Ramakrishna, because I love to eat mangoes. And no other incarnation has ever said, have you found it in Jesus or Buddha or Rama or Krishna eat mangoes? No. So I thought that Sri Ramakrishna is the ideal incarnation to follow for a mango lover like me. Forget it, But the point is, if I hear that, if I listen that and decide to eat mangoes, am I really listening to what Sri Ramakrishna is telling? Nonsense. So uh, it is an analogy and should not be taken literally. Then there is the other idea given that again there is the reasoning or logic is given to uh, substantiate that the main theme. Other things which are given as example, firstly, they are not repeated so often. In Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, you read again and again. You can't just go through 2, 3 pages without coming across this statement. And God realization is the goal of life. So that is the important thing. So that is getting repeated, and for that again reasoning also is given in that story of mango orchard. not much reasoning as to why one should eat mangoes, the health benefits of eating mangoes, and all. Though those are not, because that is just an analogy. It is, the idea is this, that one must see that what is important, and that needs to be extracted from these teachings. Mm, when you say buy a medicine, say Tylenol, then now the Tylenol, uh, uh, that active ingredient, acetaminophen, 500 mg. Now the pill weighs much more than 500 milligram, maybe 1 gram or even more than that. Now what is the remaining things? They call it uh, excipients, uh, non-active ingredients. So similarly, uh, all the teachers, they give active ingredient, and to facilitate the reception of that active ingredient, there are other things also told. uh, those are unimportant, means inactive ingredients. One need not pay too much attention on those things. In Kathopanishad, the story begins with that Nachiketa and all that. So, in the commentary, Shankaracharya very beautifully brings out that why this story is there. Akhyayika prarochanartha, means this story is to uh, incite some interest. It is there. You one need not, go into the other things about Nachiketa and that. I remember this because after one retreat on Kathopanishad, somebody asked me this question. There is question answer and all, So somebody in the question answer session asked this question. Mm, who was what was the name of the grandfather of Nachiketa, or great grandfather? I don't remember, but some such question. Now, what relevance does it have? I said, I'm sorry, I don't know. But what has it got to do with this whole message? Uh, don't worry about those unnecessary things. That is, the listening should be such that the main purport has to be taken in. Then the emphasis on practice, that is given. The reasoning is given. Uh, for example, in Kena Upanishad, you read that this is truth to be realized. Uh, if you don't, then it is Mahati Vinashti. Uh, if you realize this truth here, then you have made good use of your life. If you don't, then you have incurred a terrible loss. This life has gone for waste. So, therefore, this is told there to um, warn you that you have to make good use of every moment in your life. It is That is another way, to emphasize this. Certain things are told. God realization is the goal of life, but it is not just to be passively heard. Listening is an active process, means it should inspire us to uh, get that thing done. It is the message is to be taken in. If the message is taken in, then the message will inspire the corresponding change in our life. uh, like, oh, one day I was walking, to go to some place, and then ask somebody, is this the way to go there? Then that person said, oh, you are going exactly in the opposite direction. So now, if I hear this, if I understand this, what will be the result? I will change my direction of walking. So, exactly when we hear this, God realization is the goal of life. Our life should change in that direction. Then only I have heard, isn't it? then only I have listened to. It is important, and to go into to where we began from, because now the time, I am running out of time. So it is to go back. We have therefore to learn to listen. It is the whatever we listen, it is an active process. Listening is not a passive process. Means just sit, okay, something is going on. My teachers used to tell in the schools that he would give a class this, that, tell everything, and then ask question just to see whether we have understood or not. And I am kind of I was a backbencher, not paying much attention. So and I would not be able to answer correctly. And then he would say, "Oh, I was teaching, I was telling, was I just blowing a windpipe? Eh? That the things just came and went. The word just went through your ears. From one ear they entered, from other ear they went out without making any mark on the brain. So, uh, because it was just passively sitting there or doing something else, more interesting things in the childhood. So, uh, thus, you can't listen. Actively, you have to get it, and then make it, reach the right point by actively, pushing aside all the obstructions. You have to make it go there. Listening is not as easy as one thinks it is. So, friends, I hope you have listened. Uh, my hearty thanks and pranams to revered Brahma Prana Mataji for giving me this opportunity, and my thanks to you all for listening patiently to what I was telling. Thank you very much. Jai Thakur, Jai Ma, Jai Swamiji.